Okay, what do you say we get started? I'm gonna just start with this. Nobody wants to hear it, but I have to say it. I'm going to ride of Boom. My flight's in about 2 hours. I just need to get it off of my chest that I'm gonna be fidgety. I'm gonna be fidgety this whole call. I'm not gonna miss my flight. I have plenty of time, but there's something about doing like the big call of your job every month and also having to fly out this in the same moment that's really creating some anxiousness today. So, if you're like you're talking really fast, I have no idea what's going on. Can you slow down? Just let me know. I'm expecting it. But without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back to our monthly community calls. We meet the first Wednesday of every month from 12 to 1 p.m. Central Time. Happy Love Month. This right here is your free reminder that if you have someone special in your life and you have not asked them to be your Valentine, you still can. And it would probably make their day. So go ahead and do that today if you haven't already. And my name is Anna Lang. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for ImmyBot. I am not joined today by Tara Rummer, and I'm missing our newest member of our team, but I'm going to keep that quiet till next month. And Tara is already out right boom, which is where I will be in just a little bit. I think we're at booth 2, so if your friends are there, if you, like me, are about to get on a flight to go there, or you're sitting in the lobby of the MGM right now, come see us. Ash will be there as well. Other places that we will be as ImmyBot coming up will be community call, same as this month, overlapping with the first day of the start of a show. If you are not at Zero Trust World, come on into the community call. If you are at Zero Trust World on March 4th in Orlando, stop by the Immy booth. I will not be moving from call to event next month. I'm not on that trip. And then Tara is going straight from Orlando to London for IT Nation Europe if we have any Europeans or anybody traveling across the pond for that. Now I'll take a deep breath. I'm going to have Mark Gomez, our service delivery manager, talk to you a little bit about what happened during what happened with support during the month of January.
Yeah. So this is something that we're gonna start doing, just kind of giving you guys a recap of what all is going on. We had 544 tickets opened and closed 516. On average, we had a close rate of 5 days from open to close. A couple of announcements: we're replacing rename computer and join domain and Azure AD join with the configure directory task. That's going to be within the next 6 to 8 weeks. We're currently testing the migration of that to make sure that there's not going to be any hiccups. Effectively, all of the so the way that that's going to go is that we're going to change the recommended task right now with rename computer name and join to configure directory for all new instances and all current instances. And then once that is done, a couple of weeks after that, we will be migrating all of the existing deployments from those two tasks to configure directory. There will be email reminders sent out. I know that a lot of our clients use both of those tasks very heavily. So if you would like to do the migration on your own, in your own time, please do. We'll be sending emails letting you guys know when that's going to happen. We've also launched a client portal at help.immy.bot, so you guys can manage your tickets from there instead of just emails. New ticket contacts will be put into a group. Will be put into a group to get an email automatically. If you go to help.immy.bot right now, you can register, but until you're put in that access group, I don't think you'll be able to sign in. And then credits to the development team. The Ninja RMM integration and OAuth issues are fixed. An email was sent out about it, but if you haven't migrated to the new, if you haven't migrated your integration, there is a link at the doc site. It's labeled migration on the document. It's very straightforward. It's probably a total of 10 clicks and you're done. But that will enable the sliding refresh token that has caused heartache for a lot of our clients, including the immense team. So, um, yeah, that's about it for January 2026.
Sweet. Can you send the customer portal and the dynamic integration links to the docs in the group chat for anybody who needs it?
Yep, doing that now.
Then I will include that in your recap email as well as in the blog post for anybody who wants to look at it later.
Sounds good.
Sweet. Okay, moving right along. This is our 2026 product roadmap. I took work in progress off because I feel pretty confident in what we're going to do this year. But don't kill us if our priorities change. If the whole world falls apart, we might have to change our priorities. But our plan right now is to go through these 9 things. So I'm going to walk you through them to the best of my ability. And then there's a lot of people on this call that know much more of what's going on here. So ImmyBot team, as you see fit and relevant and your scope of work comes up, if there's anything you'd like to add, please feel free to jump in. Starting with something that a lot of you ask for is deeper PSA integration. Our goal here is pretty simple. We want to reduce the context switching, which basically means richer syncing between ImmyBot and your PSA, so records stay accurate without manual cleanup. We're also expanding automation between IMMY workflows and PSA processes. For example, when operational events occur inside ImmyBot, they become actionable work inside your PSA. So this will just ensure that there's cleaner data, fewer clicks, more seamless operations, all the things that you guys want to be seeing with your businesses. Patching and reliability improvements. Windows patching will always be an investment of ours. Expect improvements that reduce failure rates, expand patching capabilities, and make the experience smoother for end users. We know this is a high impact workflow, so remains a top priority for us. Alerts and device health. I know you've heard us say, especially if you've come to the booth, if you were pitched at the booth at one point, we are not an RMM. We do not do monitoring, but we are bringing some must-have operational monitoring into ImmyBot. Our emphasis will be on high signal alerts. We do not want to increase the noise. We want to make sure that it's clear, we have clear visibility into device health and receive alerts that highlight issues you actually care about and can act on. These improvements will help you stay ahead of problems while avoiding that alert fatigue that many of us have. Deployment and session experiences. So another major focus is making deployments and sessions more intuitive, especially for day-to-day technicians. We're improving clarity around what happened, what failed, and why, along with performance improvements that make the experience smoother and easier to trust. All about removing friction there. We've already kind of talked about the UI and navigation modernization last month. So you can go back and read the notes there if you're interested. But basically, this is just better navigation patterns that make it easier to work across multiple items without like 1,000 browser tabs. These improvements will build on our goal to streamline the entire user experience, make it more intuitive as you bring new techs in, and hopefully more intuitive for you as well. Reporting and operational visibility, or enhancing how you access key operational data from deployments to maintenance outcomes to the current state of your devices. These improvements will target both in-product reporting and the PSA-based reporting. The goal here is to help you understand what's working, what needs attention, and where you can deliver more value. This might be the biggest thing. Security. Hello. It's finally here. It's official. Role-based access control, including the major release for this. If you were in beta, you can now move to the actual thing. It's going to be coming in version 0.78.0 at the end of February. That's very exciting. We've been talking about that for a year now. So you can expect role-based access control out at the end of February in the release version 0.78.0. Onboarding and customer enablement. We're enhancing the onboarding process to make getting started with IMMY easier than ever. This includes clear guidance, better in-product help with the Getting Started wizard, and more educational content, both written documentation and new video materials. We'll talk about that in a second. And then platform performance and scalability. We're always going to continue to elevate the backend performance and scalability to make sure that ImmyBot remains the fastest, the most reliable, the most resilient. So that's kind of what we're up to for 2026. Just a couple of small things and no work at all. Is there any questions on that? I created a custom manage integration that pulls manage configs in as agents and associates them with the Immy computer. I'm sure you guys have it under control, but I don't mind sharing. Hey, that sounds awesome, James. What do you think about that, Darren? Are you on here? Yes. He may not be at his computer.
Yeah, that's great. I think Terry is working on doing this in like an asynchronous manner. We're going to be hopefully soon adding the ability to subscribe to internal events inside of ImmyBot. So maybe like session created, device created, device deleted, things like that. So that way you could keep those things in sync without having to do like a massive sync loop all the time. So hopefully that ends up being helpful for that use case.
Sweet. Are you able to address Noah's question in the chat as well? Question about migration from set computer name and domain join to computer or to configure directory. Looks like there's still no option to override the shortcode, desktop form factor shortcode.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a blocker. Yeah, Mark,
I'm taking a look at that right now.
Yes.
I'll get with Brandon.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you brought that up like 2 years ago.
I was just writing that they're dynamic parameters now. So once you have that a token for the short code that you're looking to use, it will add the parameters where you can set custom values for those.
Did we actually get that working though?
Yes.
Okay, because I tried to get that working a long time ago. I think probably because no one wanted it, and I couldn't. But if you all figured it out, awesome.
Probably working is good enough for me.
I think the only issue that we needed some kind of backend change for was the asset tag, so that way it could be populated on the onboarding form. But also, same thing. Once it's in the tokenized computer name, then it should populate it as a dynamic parameter.
Cool.
Sweet. Okay. All of what I just said is also posted on a blog post that went out yesterday that I will link in the notes as well. So if you want to send exactly what I just said to your teams, you can do that or send them a recording. It actually is recording this time. I've checked about 6 times. So if you were here last month and were a part of that debacle, welcome back, and we're recording this time for real. So part of onboarding and customer enablement is video tutorials on how to use Immy. We know it's not clear to everyone or is as intuitive to everyone, especially when you start to bring in people who maybe don't have the same level of experience or brand new techs in the space. So this is the first of many series to come, video series to come. A lot of people on this call are what we consider our power users, and this is all very base level. This is getting your first computer out of the box, set up, and your first deployment done. Super, super helpful as a refresh, super helpful for somebody brand new. Again, we're going to keep expanding on it, but what I really love about these videos, it's 8 videos, 34 minutes total runtime. They're broken down into actual bite-sized information. We've taken out all of the fluff. It's just exactly what your techs need when they need it. So more to come on this. Shout out to the Ducks team, to Jonathan McNamara, to Scotty, and the team. These came out great, and we're excited for more and more video training to be coming out this year. Okay. Without further ado, there are no available courses in Empath yet, but there will be. Be on the lookout for that. We'll have updates on that early Q2. Yeah, of course, Marvin. So we have Ashley Cooper on with us today. I wanted to bring her on for several reasons, one of which we'll talk about towards the end. But as you can see by the title here, Roos, CyberDrain, MSP Geek, r/MSP Moderator, wears many hats. I will not even try to introduce you. Ashley, go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, what you've done, what you currently do.
Sure. Hi. Yeah. Thank you for having me on. Thanks, everybody, for being willing to listen to me. I see some familiar faces, or I guess names. I don't see as many faces, but so I started at an MSP like back in 2009. I stayed there for 5 years. I left. They had a similar experience to a lot of people where they lost one of their big contracts and they had a lot of eggs in that basket. So they had to go through some decision making and they were going to let go of a dispatcher. And I was like, no, actually, you need your dispatcher almost more than you need anything else. So I'm going to step back and like I had an opportunity to be consulting for them. And so they were able to keep their dispatcher. And that was kind of how I started my consulting company. And I did that for 5 years. Or four. And then I went to Avik, was there for four. There's a bit of a pattern in the amount of years. And then I was at Gradient and then Roost. And so Roost was really a culmination of all of the things that I love, which is like automation and middleware and putting things together and transforming data and JSON and APIs. So I was super excited about that. And at the same time, I was also working with CyberDrain. And so CyberDrain was kind of like a hobby, as it is for a lot of people who start working with Kelvin or on SIP or anything. If you don't know them, it's an open source tool. And so I was kind of helping that out. And then I eventually went and did that full time. I met him because we're also both the mods, like you said, of our MSP. But then we're both board members for MSP Geek as well. And so it just kind of worked out really nicely. And I really love the community atmosphere. And so I've kind of found my groove there, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you care about automation even a little bit, Ashley's probably come across your LinkedIn if you're engaged in that way. So I want to take it back to the beginning of your journey before we kind of take the trip through it. What early experiences in MSP operations shaped the way that you solve problems today? Obviously, you're not an MSP anymore. You're doing a lot more of the vendor side, but what did you learn from running operations there?
So I think it's kind of like a catalyst of a few different things where it's less about the thing I learned and more about the thing that I realized was the same no matter where you are, just with a different like paradigm. And that thing is really silos are what ultimately always break us. Everybody is focused on their work, and in an MSP, it's very easy to see because you have a sales to invoice process that involves like 5 or 6 different job roles or people, and sometimes they might fill multiple hats and then spread out, and then somebody gets hired to fill another role, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, there's a disconnect here about a process or about something, and most of the time your salespeople and your finance people are both trying to get to the same outcome, which is, hey, I want to know how well I did. But they don't realize that all of the steps along the way, and especially in their tools and their systems, where things need to exist in order for that flow. So the thing I really kind of built upon and discovered in my MSP was that love for solving for a broken process. And the thing that I used the most was it's called a pain chain exercise, and you can make one yourself, but there's also templates online where like you talk to somebody and they're talking about their problem, and then you can kind of fill in, okay, well, who else ties into this problem, and then you can actually visualize how like how the struggle of entering information in your opportunity is actually the same struggle as having to do credit memos for things that should have already flown through. And so tying those things together was really the thing that I loved doing, because people's eyes would widen and be like, oh yeah, I do have that problem too. And that's across any organization when you think about it.
Yeah, the good thing about liking to solve problems is about anywhere you work, there will be problems for you to solve. That is a skill that not a lot of people have and translates across a lot of different things. Kind of ties into what I was going to ask next about your roles ranging so vastly. Um, how has working across so many layers of the MSP and the MSP vendor operations informed how Ashley supports partners today?
Yeah, actually, I would say that the thing that it informed the most is that it's not actually a different role or different like thing, right? Like it's like you can be working and facing kind of any direction, and it all actually still comes back to um, the core motivations or the core things that drive what you're trying to accomplish. And so I would say that oh, like the when I went to a vendor after being at an MSP and then being a consultant that was servicing a lot of MSPs, struggling in that consultant role to be like, hey, like see me as an MSP because I'm basically 50 of them behind me every time you talk to me, right? But I was when I moved into the vendor land, I realized, oh, like we are assuming that these people's businesses are totally different and we're running our business this way, but it's the same problems, it's the same people that are moving through their progression or their career, and they're just trying to solve stuff. And so pulling back the vendor um like veil of, oh, I need to do it my way and I need to know what they don't know, is actually like it's right in a lot of ways because a lot of times people need to be told the right way to do things, but there's these needs underneath that like when you solve for those belonging, community, visualization, like authenticity things, people follow along and people jump on that. And so it's always been, I gave a presentation when I was at AVIC and I said this in it, it's always been about churn, adoption, and outcomes. And it's like people churn because they don't adopt or because they don't receive their outcomes. And mapping to outcomes resolves both. And, tying in intrinsic versus extrinsic behaviors is kind of the thing that pulled that all together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm laughing at what James said. It's amazing how people will come to you with their problems and sit there and wait until you've solved them. Like, you have the same tools that I do. Go ahead and get started whenever you're ready now.
We all have our skills and abilities, right? And some people are really good at translating and some people are really good at building. And if you expect the translator to be the builder, you're gonna fall flat. Or it's like if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's gonna live its whole life believing it's stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll get into some of that later too. Um, in one of your articles on LinkedIn that you wrote, I think almost 2 years ago now, it was about community as a strategy, or isn't a strategy. It's the missing layer in the MSP playbook. What does a healthy, sustainable community look like in the MSP channel? And then what do you think it looks like for these MSPs within their own communities and their own end user experiences?
So I talk about community a lot from the concept of like the ones that people find for themselves, right? And so I think that there's almost like a capital C definition that we try to put on like the word, when really it's everything, right? Community is the reason why we live in cities. It's the reason why we have um, like local groups or business groups or whatever. We all come with some sort of need, and whether it's selfish to begin with, or whether it's more of like a, hey, I struggled before and now I have the ability and I want to help other people. That mentality exists innately in a certain, like in a type of person. And when you enable those people, they are actually sometimes your only bridge to the doubters who need a little bit more handholding before they can get there. You can't necessarily touch those people in your own marketing or in your own strategies because simply by being a brand, they're not going to immediately trust it, but they are going to trust their peers.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we think about the building of advocacy, it can really only be done when you have that platform of nobody's trying to pull the wool over my eyes. Nobody's trying to like play their thing. It's just we're all here trying to solve this problem, and you make me feel seen because you see the ways that I'm struggling. And so that's what to me, community is just what people find when they are trying to get to their outcome.
Yeah, there's a large signal chat for community events planning, and today there was some sweet messages going back and forth of people who different vendors and MSPs that had brought people into the circle at different times throughout their careers when they were thinking about leaving the channel or thinking about going to do something else or whatever the circumstance was. And it's just a good reminder that this is like about business, but especially if you have the opportunity to travel on the road and like really see the MSP community all in one place, or you're heavy on the Reddit or in some of these groups, it's just so interconnected. And so the idea that we have to convince a lot of these vendor companies that community is important is to me a little bit absurd, because I'm like, community will always exist in a place. It can be a bad community or a good community. Community is inevitable when you gather people. So how do you take that momentum and use it for good for the whole community? I think
Yeah.
that's the big thing there.
I think that one thing that, well, so everything that is good will get adopted, and then everything that is like worthy of being adopted or being used eventually will get corrupted, right? Like, so like maybe corruption is like it's a bit of an inflammatory word, but like when we think about it, right? Entropy leaving a system is going to cause that. And so when vendors recognize that community is important, they start seeing it being valuable. Then you start seeing it getting it given like acronym, right? We've got CLG, you've got community like in B2B, like especially in enterprise B2B, it's a huge topic. And our industry is about 2 to 5 years sometimes behind enterprise SaaS when it comes with what we adopt and like the products that we use for the vendors and that we use to support our MSPs. But so then they try to adopt this concept of community, meaning like, oh, I'm going to build my own, and it's going to be the way that I preach my message to my base. And it's like, you're just trying to make the outcome be easier for yourself. You're not actually out there pushing it. And so there's like these like tests almost. I've been writing an article about this. I'm trying to like clean it up so that it's good. But like, like here's what it means to be community led versus just acting community led. But it's like where are you showing up, right? Like, are you just in your own area where you're controlling the narrative, and then you're expecting all these people to be advocates for you without, giving them that value in return? Or are you showing up where they are and spotlighting them and giving them value and watching their careers rise as well? And I think that there's a lot of work that we need to do to solidify that, so that some of these larger vendors or some of these newer ones who are following a more traditional playbook can see that it can integrate. It can be part of a strategy. It just can't be tied to a revenue metric that is based on your own assumptions. It has to be tied to like what your community and what your user base are telling you that they need.
Yeah, there's I've been seeing this all over social media recently, is everybody wants a village, but not a lot of people want to be a villager.
Exactly.
I think that's the perfect analogy here of like, what does it look like to be a good villager? And that obviously is not always super self-interested. You have to look outside yourself. So
I said that one to my son like yesterday. I was like, or before I left, because I was like, oh, everybody wants to build a village, nobody wants to be a villager. He's like, I want to be a villager. And then he plays a lot of Minecraft, so he's just like, all I have to do is walk around and go meh.
Almost quite there. Less disruptive than a lot of the things that other people are doing. Switching gears a little bit, you've talked passionately about communities of practice. Can you talk to us about what that is and what makes it effective in the MSP ecosystem?
Yeah. So there is this, so community of practice isn't like a specific like buzzword. It's like used a lot in any sort of skill-based trade or, like whatever, if there's like a super passionate thing that has technical elements to it, people come together. Like there's a group called Tech Knowledge Worldwide, TKW, and they do low voltage. They're a low voltage community. And so it's like whenever there's a group of people who have a like a technical challenge that they either can solve or need help solving, that is really, it's not run by a vendor, it's not run by a company. There's no internal ulterior motives guiding it. It's a group of people who have a collection of issues that are the same, that are moving forward trying to solve those together. And so there's like, you can look it up, like there's like definitions and stuff. It's really great. But I love that because it gives us a name for a lot of the things that we naturally see also, like MSP Geek and like Reddit and like any of these communities that kind of spin up, because usually it's because somebody was frustrated and there was enough people that were also frustrated, and then all of a sudden now they're a community, right? And so when that happens, it's a lot more I don't want to say it's not altruistic, because it actually is very selfish. It's just community selfish, I guess, like in a lot of ways. Like you need to see that value first and then you want to give it back.
Yeah, I think when I came to ImmyBot, I was amazed by how much group project work was happening in forums, and how much that escalation point was used. When I was at ConnectWise, I wasn't privy to that, and I don't think anybody's going in the back end and coding anything on behalf of ConnectWise at this time. But I saw so much of that happening, and there was a point at the beginning of my career where we had, or my beginning of my time at ImmyBot, that we had to establish what our support team's presence was going to be in the forums, because they were spending so much time community building and helping with projects that for ImmyBot, but weren't tied to tickets. So we wanted to make sure those tickets were getting put in. But I love seeing the community come together and resolve a problem. We have so many people on this call that will come onto this call and help us solve an issue. I know Darren stayed after for like an hour, probably 6 months ago, with somebody, and they like worked together to look at a Sentinel-1 issue. And because there was a partner on there that could test things in their instance, like it improved the entire community's ability to get that tool faster and to get it in their hands. So I think it's super important. Let's see. I would love one. We were talking about this with the project that we'll talk about in a minute. The difference between AI and automation, and kind of where you see both of those things in 2026. I'd be curious to hear your hot takes around AI and automation in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can build automation around AI. I think that your AI can integrate automation. I think that they're two different terms in that sense, right? Like AI, almost like I would say, like we need to categorize that term more because it's like, what are we talking about when we talk about AI? Are we talking about like machine learning? Are we talking about, and so like there's a lot of mentality thinking like, oh, AI replaces automation. And it's like, no, it's just like a next step of like semantic building that you're able to do. And like if you're a builder, if you're a dev, you would be understanding that. But I don't know. Terminology is always our hardest problem. Everything, like, right, like we just talked about it with the word community, and it's a problem with so many things like that, where it's like if we can only define things a little bit better up front, and that's where the MSPKB originally came from, right? I think I can like throw a little link in the chat here for that document that I made. But the more people can understand where those differences come from, even just from a foundational, okay, now we're at the lowest common denominator level, then we can like stop talking about definitions and start talking about how we work with those tools, right?
Talk about a community tool, getting people up to speed on all of the acronyms and different things that we say in this space and outside of it is helpful to even have a conversation.
I just threw that link. I made that little page there, so that's kind of one of those. It's there now. You can read it now. You can do whatever. And it's community tool. Logan, it was always on Gitbook.
Today I learned. I was today years old when I learned. That's funny. So which automations what do you think, what process do you think is ripe for automation? Like, what are the top couple of things that come to mind that, like, if your MSP is not automating this, maybe you should? And then what automations do you think, like, maybe we've overdone it? Maybe a human touch could be resurfaced back into this workflow.
I'd probably start with a qualification or assumption saying that like they're obviously like mature enough to like be jumping into automation instead of making sure their processes are put in place. But if I would say that like it might be, some people might have a bit of it might be a hot take, and I actually sometimes disagree with myself too, but I'll get into that. But at Roost, when Aaron is saying these, one of his things that he says is you can't automate a process that doesn't exist. Now, technically, you can create a process and automate it on the fly, right? But in that case, it is something that exists even if you haven't written it down. Really, the idea is like in my mind there is like I'll talk about myself. I try to earn my automation. If I've done something 5 to 10 times and I can do it again and I literally don't even have to think. There's no cognitive reasoning involved. I'm clicking or I'm doing these things. I'm like, I already know now that this is ready to be automated. If there's a step involved where I'm like, oh, like I have to make a decision or I don't have that data point, I can still automate portions, right? Like, so it's like, I think that the biggest step is that you don't necessarily always need to have your big use case understood. But if you do know a portion of what that process is, and you're like, oh, I click here, I do this, even if it's only 30% of the job, if you've got that mapped out, that's where I would start, because then you can help use that portion to cut out that piece and then move on to what's needed for the next. And I like doing it that way because I can see where my data is needed and where I don't have it. And then that brings me back to my, like I love data residency. I originated with like SQL databases. So where data lives is really important to me. I think that is more important than trying to automate something, is understanding where that lives. And so that's the biggest piece. But then assuming that you've got all that going, I would actually say if you're mature enough, you've got your automation in place and you kind of have a handle on AI, you've read the KB and stuff, then I would say like trying to figure out where they both fit. Like, where is the first place that you could inject some AI with human in the loop, to, and like maybe you have a like a little center of excellence or like a small little SWAT team or something that are like identifying those. And you just break through them on a roadmap, right? Like it doesn't need to be this big, broad thing. You can do things daily. You can do things over time and iterate. And I would say that's where I'm at, is I'm a big fan of iteration.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the human point there is, just because you can automate something, you still need the process written down for when it breaks, when you're training. And then you also still need the humans to be thinking and strategizing about where it makes sense to implement something, what the lift is, what the time savings is. And that's part of what we'll talk about too. Which one of these do I want to end my questions with before we talk about our project? I think this one. You've described your work as powered by ADHD-driven creativity. How has neurodiversity shaped your approach to solving these complex problems and to building community?
It's the whole thing. I think that like there is these underlying things that are sought out. I mean, it's community in itself, right? Like I have a struggle. I have a frustration with either not belonging or not seeing myself in something or feeling like an outcast in a group or having imposter syndrome or feeling like I'm not the one that people want to be listening to. And then to like find a group of people that feel that same way, or even say like I like to sit on a panel like the panel that I sat on with Tara at Secure or ChannelCon, and like just have people come up to me after and be like, I never thought that that's what that was. I just thought that I was weird. I didn't know that there was a way for me to communicate this. I just thought that I was different. And like to have somebody be like, I'm looking back at all of my life, it's like, oh yeah, I do have this, I do have that. I like the overwhelm that can kind of settle when you realize that you're not broken. Because it feels like that. It feels like you're broken. You're like, I can't say this thing and this person can say it so well, but I understand all the way to step G. And I just can't get anybody else there because I'm not the one that can galvanize that story or whatever. And so finding ways, what I've had to do is I've kind of had to like, for anybody who's familiar with Working Genius, I'm a discerning inventor. And if you're not familiar, it's basically just like an altitude level of like where you spend your time. And so there's wonder, there's invention, there's discernment, there's galvanizing, there's enablement, and there's tenacity. Galvanizing is the ability to like rally people behind an action. That is my biggest frustration, not because like I don't want to do it. I'm so eager to do it. People think you're actually galvanizing all the time. I just hate doing it because I'm not as eloquent. And so I have learned over time that I'll use my geniuses of discernment and invention to be like, I actually realize that this is the problem that's going on. And I'll just build it. I'll just build it and show it. And then nobody can say, prove it to me. Nobody can tell me I'm wrong because I've already and here's the proof. And so that's been like the biggest shaper of creativity is I've been realizing, oh, it's easier for me to map what I can't do as boundaries and like use like bounded creativity to basically be like, all right, what can I do now that I've established those boundaries? And it brings up so much potential because you're not like working with it. It's like an outer join of potential. So
Yeah, it's the freedom of the mind it's that grounding practice. I think Tara brought this up last month. We were talking about Judd's box and like your realm of responsibility and creating boundary and parameters around what you're responsible to and what you're responsible for at work and in your personal life actually creates so much freedom because now you have freedom within the box to do just that instead of this like overwhelming freedom that you could do anything that can be so overwhelming that you can't take the next step forward. So I think I love what you said there, and I love what's coming through the chat of like this whole industry is run on neurodiversity, which I think is why the conversation that many have had, and Tara's been a huge push on it, is so important because a lot of us are feeling similar ways about all of the ways that we work, but nobody's saying it. And it's the saying the quiet thing out loud that I think is so helpful and so informative for everybody. And it really does build community because you can't have community when everybody's siloed in their own feelings and doesn't have the level of connection. So I love that. Okay, we're coming up at time. I'm thinking about the airport, and I want to introduce a project that we're working on together. So there's a lot of people going on in here. So on February 9th, Monday, we're going to be launching what we are calling the inaugural, wow, what a hard word, Automation Madness, which is a March Madness style automation bracket contest. So we will be taking submissions starting on February 9th. Check any of these people's LinkedIn's for the information. We're basically, there's a couple of things that we want to happen. One, we really, really want to celebrate the automation wizards behind a lot of what has helped make our products so successful. We want to see your brilliance brought to the main stage. We want to have something to show for it. Secondly, like we talked about throughout this conversation, being able to prove time savings and strategy behind what you do. We know a lot of people have built really cool automations, but they have a really hard time telling the story of how it saves money or time or headcount or whatever that story is. So we're excited to coach our submitters up on how to be able to tell that story to their leadership team, how to be able to tell that story to other people and make it compelling. And then we also just really wanted to do something fun for the community. So there will be a couple of rounds virtually on LinkedIn live stream. And then the final round, we will be flying the 2 finalist teams out. You can have up to 3 people on your team to MSP Geek, where we will be having the finals live there. So for anybody who has something to automate, or has automated something, we want to see it. We talked a lot about this with this group of like, I think a lot of people are going to think their automations are too simple. We would say there's not an automation too simple. If it works, if it's powered, if it's, that's the simple automations that can save the most time. Teams do not have to be from the same organization, no. And we also really want this to be given back to the community. So we are not going to require that you give your full automation as open source or give it away, but we do want there to be a part of the project that you can share with the larger community to be able to be a part of this contest. So all the information about that will be going out again February 9th. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add about it, Ashley, about anything you're excited about for it, or
I will say I'm excited to see the creative use of all of the tools and how people put them together.
Yeah. So you're not required to use any of the tools. We are highly recommend that you use at least one of them. And then for anybody who isn't using one of the tools, there's a open-ended response where you can tell us why you're using other tools, because we want to be open and available to. There might be different use cases for different tools. But we also really want to see how you guys are using these tools together. And if there's any tools, some of these are not all tools. Some of these are communities or consulting groups or other things. But if there's any of these tools that you don't have access to, and you want access to build the automation, we're able to give you free access to those tools to be able to do that if you need it. But we're really, really excited. I'm watching Ted Lasso through for the first time, so that's a little bit of what's going on with me. But I'm really, really excited about this project. I'm excited to get to fly some people out, especially my selfish dream is that it's some technicians that like never get to travel because their companies never let them go to conferences and they get to go to MSP Geek. That's my selfish desire, but I would also love to see some of our beautiful, friendly faces that are always building automations in the community get their flowers. So with that being said, we have 9 minutes left. If there's any questions, now is the time. I'm going to wait 11 seconds, starting now. It feels so much longer than it really is. Okay. Without further ado, here are your helpful resources. Look how cute. Look how cute. The leprechaun Emmy. Don't forget to join us for next month's call, unless you're at Zero Trust World, then you can catch up with the ImmyBot team there. I will see some of you at Ride of Boom, and be nice to each other on your way out. And don't forget to ask your special someone to be your Valentine and report back next month. Everybody say thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
inviting me.
Of course. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Emma.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye. Meow.
Bye.